And I'm going to ask something a little bit more specific this time. I think this is the first specific question that I'm asking you today. But you use something called the EI Sport Inventory Test when you're working with people involved in football. I read this and I couldn't quite understand. I don't think I'm smart enough to understand this just by reading it. This is a test that reportedly consists of more than 90 questions just for you to get the better assessment of the people that you work with. Could you kind of explain how this works? Like what is this, how it works?
So Steve, thanks for the question, because I talk about emotions and you cannot touch them, you cannot see them. So for many people, it's like, okay, we are just chatting.
Yeah.
No, there is a scientific part.
Sure.
So the emotional questionnaires, actually, there are different typologies. Some are more suitable for CEOs or leaders or team leaders, some others for employees. So the one you just mentioned is the one developed for athletes in sport. And through these 90 plus questions, we can understand in numbers the level of achievement drive or flexibility, let's say the soft skills that are more related to sport performance. So when I interact with an athlete, we generally undertake these tests just out of curiosity. Then during the interpretation and delivery session, we rationalize together. And usually it's the athlete itself that says, okay, I would like to develop self-confidence because I think it's very important. Or I think I want to develop resilience. So with my support, we organize, we arrange some activities, real life activities that gonna focus on developing one or the other soft skills, depending on the person, depending on the goals, the stage of the career. There are too many variables. But yeah, we're dancing the moment. Having a report, a graph, helps a lot to see your emotions in front of you in numbers. And it's fascinating, yeah.
I'm going to ask what could be a very interesting question to both of you, Nick and Norbert. For coaches like yourselves, how good are you guys at controlling your emotions? I'm sure this is a challenge for you as well, but how adept are you two at controlling your emotions? Because it's so important for you guys to be able to, guide the players or guide your friends or your clients to be able to control their emotions. That's the ultimate goal, or at least be better at it. As coaches yourselves, what kind of challenge is it for you to be able to control your own emotions, to be able to apply whatever you need to the players or to your clients?
Norbert, you're going first. Do you want me to go first?
please give me some ideas.
Okay, genuinely, I recognize I'm myself a highly sensitive person.
Okay.
So of course is something that we continuously, Norbert, I'm allowed to use we. I continuously have to be conscious and aware of. Stay in the moment is an affirmation that I repeat myself very often. How good we are, as long as you don't do any damage, you don't hurt, so you can consider yourself good. But of course, we always have space for improvement. I think being in the present moment, me, myself, meditate, take my time, don't do too many things in one day. It helps me to identify with more precision the emotions, so you can regulate them. Norbert, I leave it to you. Yes, please.
Yeah, Norbert, go ahead.
I think I should listen to Nick about taking more time for myself, because I'm not good at that. But hey, it's the lifestyle, so no complaints. I enjoy it. One thing I learned and I kept doing is I read Marcus Aurelius's book, and he said, today, when he woke up, he said, today I'm going to face myself with disappointment, angry people and unhappy people. So made me realize to expect less. so I won't get disappointed. So if I do a session on something, I'm not going to expect the players to be thankful or grateful or give me the right emotions, because as Nick said, I'm also an emotional person, sensitive person. So I can say it doesn't really get to me, but it does deep down. It's just it's not the way I feel. I can't choose that. It's the way I react. It's a freedom of choice. So I lower my expectations, hope for the best, expect the worst, and that helps me. But that helps me. It might not help someone else. So that's how I regulate myself.
Yeah, maybe we need to start having emotional intelligence coaches for coaches.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I think that's what it sounds like, man.
Yeah.
But Nick, I'm gonna ask you this. I saw that you've worked specifically with a footballer recently, Kenji Mboma. I saw that from your website. Who's playing for an American university in Nebraska. It's a very interesting place. When you met him, Nick, and assessed how you'll go about coaching him emotionally, were there anything you noticed that made him? Because I'm speaking from a football perspective. Are there something that you notice from footballers like Kenji that you notice that's different from others from maybe a different field or a different industry? Like, is there a commonality that you see in footballers that are quite different from the people that you see from other fields?
I would say, being specific, I did not decide how to coach Kenji. We did decide together. Because if there is no intention from the other side, I can hit him with a stick and it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. So if the intention from the other side are good and positive, so we can work together, and the process is going to be smooth and pleasant as well. Specifically with Kenji, in terms of football and talking about the emotional quotient report, I've noticed skills as a leader, like someone that can drive the team or gather up the team even when, the match is not going that well. From the report, I was sensing that he's the one that can gather up the team and re-motivate them. Of course, with other athletes, you might not see that typology of report, but like not everyone wants to be the captain of the team or the leader of the team. There are other players that are there focused, being a part of the team, but not necessarily the leader of it. Again, every human is different. Every athlete is different, as Norbert said as well. Background, experience, and family support. There are a very wide range of variables that influences how the human perform in the different industries. In this case, football.
Yeah, and another page that I saw on your website that I found to be really interesting is that you've also worked with James Hughes, a former footballer who's now a football agent. Just, like straight out of curiosity here, how does the dynamic of that relationship work for you as an emotional intelligence coach?
So what I did with James is something that I do with other football agents as well, and lesser coaches too. They call me when they want to have an emotional profile of the players. So for an agent, it's good because he can understand by the level of adaptability or flexibility if that player that he's scouting or about to propose to a club, it might feel good in another continent, in another scenario. If he builds very easily relationship skills, he might find a new environment in Mexico, coming from, I don't know, Italy maybe, or from Europe. So he's more sure and secure that he's proposing to a club a valuable athlete. Same with coaches, in order to blend with the athletes a little bit better, is a good tool having this typology of report.
You speak about a report, an emotional profile. You said, how do you go about compiling that? Is it based off of the questionnaire that you prepared for this person, or how does that process work? If you can kind of explain that in a nutshell.
So to use these questionnaires, I use a company that is an Australian company. I received training for interpreting and delivering this typology of tests too. There are questions. Let's call it candidate now. It's no client, it's no friend. Let's call it candidate now. It fulfills the questions, and the algorithm then develops the graph. Of course, the person is free to respond with the most genuine approach, and the most genuine is it. The report is, reliable.
Yeah,
I would say. But of course, it's not something that I take like strictly. You are this report. We rationalize it, because I trust more the person than the computer.
yeah. Hey, Norbert, I think you might need to really give Nick a call and maybe have him start profiling some of your players that you're having problems with.
I think Nick's too busy for that.
Norbert, anytime, get a call. Yeah. Let's jump on a call.
I mean, to be honest, jokes aside, if I had the opportunity, and I will have the opportunity soon enough, I will definitely implement these type of things in my team, in my club, because as we said, the manager, we have so many responsibilities, and I think having someone as Nick on board is a massive help.
Sure,
and I do hope to see this more and more in the future evolving in football teams, but in sports in general.
And Nick, emotional intelligence, although everyone has a different way of defining what an emotion is, it's now almost being recognized by a lot of people as an important attribute for athletes like footballers. For people in sports, does emotional intelligence matter more? Would you say? Maybe this is not the best way to put it, but because they're almost always forced into situations, these athletes, these footballers, in which they kind of have to make the best possible decisions constantly in a very split-second moment. Do you feel like that puts athletes in a different place when it comes to kind of, developing their ability to control emotions, or are footballers really no different from others from other walks of life?
So I give a small forward. I'm witnessing. I started working with emotional intelligence coaching, not in sport, to be honest. Then I came across an ex-footballer, and he's been the one telling me, Nick, do it in football because it's very valuable.
Yeah.
So I then realized that when the person involves motor skills, is even more important to regulate emotions. I'll give an example. A CEO might drag himself at work, not regulating emotion, like being a bit sad and being moody, let's say. When instead motor skills are involved, if you don't really have the good emotions, the good mindset, the legs really don't work. You don't jump, you don't run. So when motor skills are involved, specifically in sport and as well football, when you have to jump, run, and tackle, and I think is a more valuable tool than compared to a CEO or someone that have an office work. Although is important for both of them, but when motor skills are involved, I'm sensing that is even more important.
Another thing that just came to my mind is, while we were talking about this, we see, let's say we're watching a footballer in a game. It's very common to see, because players get angry all the time during a game, but they probably get angry about 1,000 times during a 90-minute game, to be honest. So when that happens, we always see players, they can't help it. We're all human beings, so their tension rises when something happens that upsets them in a game, and you see them going in for a really hard or deep tackle because of a split-second anger that they might have felt. And then as soon as they see the opponent going down to the ground, getting injured, the player who actually tackled them sometimes looks terrified. And I think that's the emotional element of football that also makes it very difficult for footballers to control their emotions, because once you do something like that and damage is already done, it's hard to escape criticism now because you're on public display doing something like that, but you know yourself that you made a mistake before anybody else did. From a coaching perspective, for somebody who coaches emotional intelligence, how do you guide a player to navigate through an experience like that? Because this could be a traumatizing experience. I'll give you an example. You know, this was a very big story in Korea a couple of years ago when Son Heung-min at Tottenham inflicted that injury on Gomez, who plays for Everton. That was a big story in Korea, and a lot of people talked about the importance of mental health, not only for the players who was injured so terribly, but for the player who actually made a contribution to inflict that injury. To be honest, you know, as a coach who coaches emotional intelligence, how do you guide a player through that kind of traumatizing experience?
I would take it a bit broadly. If the issue is not controlling, like we're talking about self-control, so how to develop self-control is one story. How to overcome or let go something that happened, like not nicely on the pitch, there we might be talking about acceptance. If you regret about something, maybe a reaction, we might be talking, as we did at the beginning, about emotional assertiveness. Okay, just go out, express your emotions, be assertive, accept it, and accept the critics as well. But don't let all of that stopping you. Of course, there are positive affirmations, or let's say even affirmations, regaining the self-control point, just a easy word. If a player, after being teased or provoked, ask himself, is he worth reacting? Maybe now, just let go. And so just with one question, and one question takes, I don't know, half of a second, you might get self-control and self-regulation just in that half second. But of course, it's good to have a guidance. If you never had a guidance, you don't know that the question can change the match or your career, the worst case scenario.
Hey Norbert, this is something that makes me curious. You know, as a coach who directly coaches the football team, I'm sure you've had experiences like this. I'm sure you've had to deal with a lot of situations that are quite similar to this. Could you kind of give us an example, or maybe kind of like share your experience? Like, how do you guide your players through an experience like that when something extreme like that on the football pitch happens?
You know, some coaches would say they rather have these players because I think, and I might be mistaken. I just think that being overly emotionally intelligent can cost you as a player not being hungry enough on the pitch. Because football, I don't know if you ever watched All or Nothing Tottenham.
No,
Mourinho said, nice players don't win games, right? So you have to have that kind of go in, kick them, hit them. I know it doesn't sound nice, but I learned it the hard way. And it's unfortunately, it's needed here and there. But then as Nick said, the reaction is important.
Right.
Did I have situations like that? Yes, I had. Usually when I have a situation like that and a player gets a yellow card, what I do, I watch him for the next 5 minutes to see how he reacts. And if I see he doesn't cool down, I take him off because I feel like I lost him mentally. I can't recover him from the sideline, so I'd rather take him off.
Sure.
But yeah, there's big factors behind that. So some coaches would say, yeah, I need that kind of guy. I want that guy to kick the players and I want him to react that way. I'm not a fan of that, but it's part of football.
Sure. So Norbert, before we close here, and I ask my last question to Nick, are there any additional questions that you have from a coaching perspective that you may have wanted to ask Nick?
Yeah, there's one actually, Nick, that I wanted to ask you is that do you believe or do you think that different cultures channel different emotions into people? Because for me, football is culture, and culture channels emotions. Do you agree or disagree or has some resemblance?
I completely agree. Yeah, we mentioned background. It shapes the way we process emotions. Then being intelligent means as well letting go of those structures that we have received, and we didn't really decide to receive. So we develop our mentality and our way to process life events and emotions. Norbert, I understood you mentioned Marcus Aurelius. I tutored the School of Philosophy as well. And yeah, Stoicism is a very valuable tool to tune into yourself, to build resilience, to develop self-knowing and self-awareness. So even trying to, I don't want to say teach, but transmit and share those typology of informations with the athletes, I think it can be very beneficial, yeah, to overcome a loss or to overcome a failure as well. Because I mean, sport and life, it's both successes and failures. I do really agree. We've been educated in a certain culture. We born somewhere, and that somewhere shaped us. So re-elaborating our education is letting go or emptying the cup, to use an analogy, in order to refill it with what is most beneficial and effective for what we are doing today. There are theories. I mean, I mentioned Stoicism is a good tool. Albert Ellis, rational emotional behavioral therapy is another good tool. Stephen Covey is another great one. There are scientific techniques that we can use once we have addressed the issues and what we would like to have as a goal, as a target. But yes, to respond to you, Norbert, I'd say yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you for the detail as well. It's good to hear that, Nick. Now, the reason why I asked you as well, just to put a little bit of cherry on the top, is that as we spoke with Steve as well before, for example, we spoke about Dinamo Zagreb Academy in Croatia, where there's only like 3.5 million people to 4 million people.
Mhm.
But yet the mentality is so different because of the culture. And we noticed that a lot of good players, professional players, top quality players have either a poor background or a culture from a third world country or something similar to that, or something where something, let's say, difficult or bad happened in their life and they were strong enough to go through that, and they evolved that life. Throughout that life experience, they evolved that certain level of emotional intelligence, and with that resilience, and that kind of helped them become who they are. So that's why I also feel like emotional intelligence is such an important and crucial part in not just in sport but in everyday life.
Sure.
I agree, Norbert. Is the capability to transform poison in nectar, I would say. And of course, if you are coming from a difficult background, you have more poison, and yeah, being intelligent emotionally and mentally as well means that you transform, literally, you transform all bad that happened to you into good. Of course, with a guidance, with a good football coach, with a personal coach, the process might be smoother. But yeah, that's the point. That's the point. Having had a tough background is an extra skill, I would say. Of course, when used appropriately.
Yeah. Thank you. Interesting. Thank you.
Thanks for you, Norbert.
And Nick, the last question I have here for you is, we we ask very similar questions as our last question to all of our coaches who come on this podcast. And I'm gonna close with a similar question. Coaches, when we look at coaches from a from our perspective, a lot of times we often define their success by what they accomplish or what they win when it's football, But to you, what will be the biggest coaching accomplishment for you? And what are some of the things that you would like to achieve as an emotional intelligence coach? If we can kind of close with that, I think that will be a nice way to kind of wrap things up.
That's a good question. I mean, the most difficult one usually comes at last, is it? So what's my meaning of success is I use client well-being. When he or she feels good, scoring or not, performing or not, playing 90 minutes or not, when it feels good, I feel happy. When the relationship with the family improves, I feel happier. So my ultimate goal is that emotional intelligence gonna be taught in schools as well, like math and whatever we have learned, but giving the very younger the capability to understand how to tune with emotion, how to regulate anger. I think it might prevent, even worse scenario like suicidal attempts and this kind of mental health related stuff. Yeah. The sooner as we start, the sooner we can have a better society, I believe.
Great. Yeah, no, I think that about sums it up for me. And Nick, is there anything else that you wanted to add? And if you can kind of close with how you felt about having this conversation. I'm not sure if you have a lot of these experiences where we, sit for an hour and talk about what you do. How was this experience for you? And, what can we expect from you going forward?
So first of all, I thank you for the openness to welcome this branch of coaching, this specific branch into football. Secondly, I really enjoyed your questions because I make myself a lot of questions, but of course not these ones. So it's useful and it helped me to understand myself and what I do, even on another perspective.
Those are one of the things that I feel thankful for, because when we meet coaches, whether it's you or a different football coach or football analyst or whatever, we ask these questions to them. We sit here, we keep asking these questions to them, and they say, your questions actually made us think about ourselves more than when we actually try to do our day to day. So yeah, no, that's really great to hear.
Of course, yeah. Is as I said, I make myself a lot of questions, but yours are not mine, and yeah, it is a help. So I'm grateful.
Great. Hey Norbert, is there anything that you wanted to add? Maybe you wanna share your experience of being involved as a co-host this time. Yeah, you're like a regular on this podcast now. So yeah, if there's anything else you wanna add to it, fire away, man.
Actually, Steve, I'm regular. I listen to you guys all the time.
I can tell.
This is my to-go place on my journey to Norwich. When I drive 3 hours, I put on the podcast. I'm go like, there's my good old friend Steve. Let me listen what he's chatting about, and I'm just all over it. So
look, if it's a 3-hour drive, that means you can listen to us about 3 times. So
I know you better than you know yourself now.
yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, and thanks for that. Really appreciate the love, man. And Nick, I just wanted to say thank you for taking your time. This is a very special experience, to be honest, because I never really had an opportunity to talk about these things. But this is something that I've always wanted to do, actually, because the aspect of what we call mental coaching in football is something that I really consider to be a fascinating area in coaching. And that's an area that I always like to study. So I think this was a really great experience. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on today.
Seth, thank you, and thank Norbert for your presence.
All right.
Thank you, guys. I'm great.
All right, great. So everybody, we're gonna wrap up here. Thank you, Norbert, and thank you, Nick. And thank you everybody for listening to our episode number 6. We'll be back soon with our next one. And until then, have a great time. We'll be back again soon. Thank you. Goodbye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Take care. Stay blessed.